let's transition to my weekly NFL Wise Picks. It's NFL Week 3. Again, my Wise Picks, you can hold me accountable for my Wise Picks by season's end. I'm going to add all my wins and my losses up and see what my total is on the win side and the losses side and see if I have a better record at the end of the season, if it's going to be a good or bad record. We're going to find out. Week 1, I did pretty good. Week 2, not so well. Let's see how I do week 3 with my NFL Wise Picks. Let's start off in Tampa. It's Bo Nix and the 0-2 Denver Broncos traveling to Tampa Bay to take on Baker Mayfield and the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are favored by 6.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The over-under is 39.5. The Buccaneers are a better football team than the Broncos are. Baker Mayfield is better than Bo Nix currently is. I've been impressed with the Buccaneers in these first 2 weeks. They beat the Commanders week 1. They handled them. And then week 2, they got an impressive road win in Detroit against Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. The Broncos, they're inconsistent offensively. Bo Nix didn't throw a single touchdown pass against the Steelers. I thought he was going to perform better than he did. So I don't really have much faith in the Broncos. I'm rolling with the Bucs to beat the Broncos in Tampa. I'm going Buccaneers 27, Broncos 13. CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans favored by 2.5 points. They are 2-0. They are traveling to Minnesota to take on Sam Darnold and the Minnesota 2-0 Vikings. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Minnesota. And the over-under for this matchup is 46.5. Yes, the Minnesota Vikings are 2-0, but they did lose Justin Jefferson in the second half. So I'm not so sure if he's going to play in this week 3 game against the Texans. Texans are off to a 2-0 start. They beat the Colts in week 1 in Indy. And in week 2, they beat the Chicago Bears in Houston at home. And I feel like outside of Kansas City, the most impressive team in the AFC has been the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. I'm rolling with the Texans to beat the Vikings in Minnesota. I'm going Texans 28, Vikings 17. I expect CJ Stroud to outplay Sam Darnold, and I expect the Texans to take care of his business on the road. Texans 28, Vikings 17. The 2-0 LA Chargers and Justin Herbert are traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are favored by 2 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Pittsburgh. The over-under is 35.5. I love both of these head coaches in Jim Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. Justin Herbert is better than Justin Fields. And the Steelers, even though they are 2-0, they have not had a passing touchdown yet this season. And offensively, I still don't know if they have a competent offense. The Chargers, on the other hand, they beat the Raiders in week 1. They steamrolled the Panthers in week 2, but that's essentially a bye week. It really doesn't count. But I believe more in Justin Herbert than I do Justin Fields. I believe in the Chargers offense more than I believe in the Steelers offense because I believe in Jim Harbaugh as an offensive-minded head coach more than Mike Tomlin. Although Mike Tomlin has the edge defensively, I'm giving the offensive edge to Jim Harbaugh, and I'm rolling with the Chargers to improve to 3-0, and the Steelers drop to 2-1. I'm going Chargers 20, Steelers 10. Jalen Hurts and the 1-1 Philadelphia Eagles are traveling to New Orleans to take on Derek Carr and the 2-0 New Orleans Saints. The Saints are favored by 2.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 49.5. Eagles beat the Packers in week 1 in Brazil. 34-29. They lost in week 2 against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons had a game-winning touchdown drive. Falcons beat the Eagles 22-21. The Saints, obviously, they are 2-0. In week 1, they demolished the Panthers. Week 2, they also demolished the Cowboys. And the Saints have been very, very impressive. In their first 2 weeks, the Saints have scored 91 points. And Derek Carr, over his last 6 starts, has played well. He's 5-1 over his last 6 starts, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His passer rating is 129.9. And in those last 6 games that he's played, he's went up against teams like Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Dallas, 3 solid football teams. So I've been impressed with Derek Carr and the Saints, and they played well in their first 2 weeks. The Eagles played well against the Packers, and they played solid for the most part against the Falcons. But I don't believe in that Eagles defense. I really, really don't. And I went back and forth on this game, but I'm going to roll with the Saints to beat the Eagles in New Orleans. I'll go Saints 27, Eagles 24. I don't believe in that Eagles defense. The Eagles defense, even though they have Vic Fangio now, they're not a good defense. They are not a good defense. They allowed Kirk Cousins on that game-winning drive by the Falcons to go 5 of 6, 70 yards, and he picked apart that Eagles defense in the second half. So I don't believe in that Eagles defense. Therefore, I'm rolling with the Saints to beat the Eagles 27-24 in the Big Easy. The New York Giants, who are 0-2, they are traveling to Cleveland to take on the 1-1 Cleveland Browns. The Browns are favored by 6 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Cleveland. The over-under for this matchup is 38.5. The Browns are a better football team than the Giants are. I like Brian Daboll as a head coach, but unfortunately, because Daniel Jones is his quarterback, he's probably going to get fired at the end of the season. And the Browns, they had an impressive win last week against the Jaguars in Jacksonville. They didn't play well in week 1 against the Cowboys, but they played much better in week 2 against the Jaguars. And Deshaun Watson actually played solid in week 2. Not great. Not the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson, but he played pretty solid in week 2 against the Jaguars. Therefore, I'm rolling with the Browns to beat the Giants in Cleveland. I'll go Browns 24, Giants 10. The 1-1 Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams are traveling to Indianapolis to take on Richardson and the Colts, who are also 1-1 on the season. The Colts are favored by 1.5 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in Indy. The over-under is 43.5. I like this quarterback matchup. Caleb Williams versus Anthony Richardson. Bears versus Colts. These 2 states are right next to each other, so it's not a far commute for the Bears going to Indianapolis. Bears, I talked about them earlier. They're 1-1. Defensively, they played solid defense, but offensively, Caleb Williams still has not scored a touchdown this season, and the offensive line for the Bears is awful. In 2 games, they've given up 9 sacks, so they can't protect Caleb Williams. The Colts, they lost week 1 to the Texans. Excuse me, I think earlier I said the Colts are 1-1. They are 0-2, actually. So the Colts are 0-2. They lost week 1 to the Texans. Week 2, they lost to the Packers in Lambeau. I think the Colts are desperate for a win here. I think the Colts have a better offensive line than the Bears have. And I believe right now in Sean Steichen, the head coach for the Colts, more so than I do Matt Eberflus. I'm going Anthony Richardson, 21, Caleb Williams, 17. The Green Bay Packers, who are 1-1, are traveling to Tennessee to take on Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are favored by 3 points. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 36.5. I was very, very impressed last week with Matt LaFleur, the head coach of the Packers, and his game plan with Malik Willis as his quarterback. They got the football to Josh Jacobs, and I believe Josh Jacobs right now, he leads the NFL in the rushing yards department. So I thought Matt LaFleur had a tremendous game plan with Malik Willis. And the Titans, they are 0-2. They lost week 1 to the Bears. Week 2, they lost at home against the Jets. I don't think the Titans are very good. I like their skill position players with Tyler Boyd, with DeAndre Hopkins, with Calvin Ridley as well. But I don't believe in Will Levis. So honestly, if you look at these two quarterbacks, you got Malik Willis going up against Will Levis. So if you look at the Titans, essentially, Mike Vrabel, the former head coach of the Tennessee Titans, he chose Will Levis over Malik Willis. So I think Malik will be motivated if he starts. Jordan Love did practice today for the first time. So he did practice, so that's good for the Packers. But I'm rolling with the Packers in an upset over the Titans in Tennessee. I'm going Packers 21, Titans 20. I think Malik Willis is going to be motivated, and I think he wants to prove that he's better than Will Levis is, and he wants to prove that the Titans made a mistake rolling with Will Levis over himself. Will Levis will lose this game to Malik Willis. Malik Willis 21, Will Levis 20. The Miami Dolphins, who are 1-1 on the season, they are traveling to Seattle to take on the 2-0 Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are favored by 4.5 points. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff in Seattle. The over-under for this matchup is 41.5. The Dolphins beat the Jaguars in week 1. They got dismantled by the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football last week, so they're 1-1 on the season. The Seattle Seahawks in week 1, they beat the Broncos 26-20, and week 2, they beat the Patriots in overtime fashion 23-20. But there's not going to be Tua for the Dolphins. Tua is out, I believe, until at least week 8. So Skylar Thompson is going to get the nod at quarterback for the Dolphins. I believe Geno Smith is better than Skylar Thompson. I like the way the Seahawks are playing right now. I really, really do. You got weapons in DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jigba at receiver. And you still got Kenneth Walker in the backfield. And if Geno Smith can just manage the game, the Seahawks will have success. I'm rolling with the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Miami Dolphins 30-16. The Carolina Panthers, who are 0-2, they are traveling to Las Vegas to take on the 1-1 Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are favored by 5.5 points. It's a 4:05 p.m. kickoff in Vegas. The over-under for this matchup is 40.5. The Carolina Panthers are the worst team in the NFL. And like I said earlier on the show, they benched Bryce Young, but it's not all Bryce Young's fault as to why the Carolina Panthers are struggling as a football team. And the only fun the Carolina Panthers players are going to have this weekend is going to be because they're going to be in Vegas, because they're going to get beat down by the Vegas Raiders Sunday afternoon. So if you're a Carolina Panthers football player, go out and have some fun this weekend in Vegas, because you ain't going to have much fun on a football field Sunday afternoon in Vegas. I'm rolling with the Raiders to beat the Panthers 23-10. They are starting Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is well past his prime. Gardner Minshew is a better quarterback than Andy Dalton currently is. Raiders 23, Panthers 10. The San Francisco 49ers, who are 1-1, they are favored by 7 points. They are traveling to L.A. to take on the 0-2 L.A. Rams. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff. The over-under for this matchup is 43.5. I love this head coaching matchup. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, they both have had success in the NFL. Two head coaches who I respect, and they both have had some very, very entertaining matchups against one another. But right now, the Rams are a depleted football team. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp for the Rams. And the 49ers, they're not going to have Deebo Samuel, but they still got Brock Purdy. They still have Trent Williams as well. They still have Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle. So I'm rolling with the 49ers to beat the Rams in an NFC West battle. I'll go 49ers 31, Rams 17. The 1-1 Detroit Lions and Jared Goff, favored by 3 points. They are traveling to Arizona to take on the 1-1 Arizona Cardinals. It's a 4:25 p.m. kickoff in Arizona. The over-under for this matchup is 52.5. The Cardinals have impressed me in these first 2 weeks. It was a competitive week 1 loss against the Buffalo Bills, and in week 2, they destroyed the LA Rams in Arizona. So the Arizona Cardinals could be one of those teams that I would consider is a sleeper in the NFC. And Kyler Murray played well in week 2. I believe Marvin Harrison Jr. had 4 receptions for over 130 receiving yards. But I believe the Detroit Lions are going to be too much for the Arizona Cardinals to handle. I expect Jared Goff and the Lions to have a bounce-back performance. They lost last week against Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. I'm rolling with Jared Goff and the Lions to beat Kyler Murray in Arizona. I'll go Lions 30, Cardinals 27. So it will be a high-scoring affair, but I expect the Lions to outlast the Cardinals in Arizona in week 3. Lions 30, Cardinals 27. Let's go to the Monday night matchups. We got a Monday night double header. It's Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 0-2. They're traveling to Buffalo to take on the 2-0 Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. The Bills are favored by 5.5 points. It's a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. The over-under is 45.5. This is my upset pick of the week. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a desperate football team. They don't want to fall to 0-3. If you're 0-3 in the AFC, that means you're not going to the playoffs. So I believe Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, they are going to be motivated, and I expect the Jaguars to upset the Bills in Buffalo. I'm going Trevor Lawrence 24, Josh Allen 21. The Washington Commanders, who are 2-0 on the season, they are traveling here to the Queen City to take on the 0-2 Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are favored by 7.5 points. It's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff on ABC. The over-under for this matchup is 48.5. Looking at this game, you would have thought the Bengals would have been 2-0 and the Commanders would have been 0-2 heading into this Monday night matchup. But it's the Commanders who are 2-0. Actually, the Commanders are 1-1. I'm sorry about that. They beat the Giants. They lost to the Buccaneers in week 1. I have so many games I'll be having to keep up with. Commanders are 1-1 on the season, and they lost to the Buccaneers in week 1, and they beat the Giants in week 2. Bengals are 0-2. Bengals, they lost to the Patriots in week 1. One of the worst performances you'll see from the Bengals this year. They played well against the Chiefs. The Bengals should have beat the Chiefs Sunday, folks. They should have beat the Chiefs. They outplayed the Chiefs in that game. So because the Bengals are desperate and they don't want to fall to 0-3 on the season, I expect the Bengals to take care of business at home against the Commanders. Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels. Daniels has shown some tremendous promise, but he still has a long way to go. The Commanders have new head coach Dan Quinn on their staff. Right now, Zach Taylor is a better coach than Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is inexperienced as a head coach. So with that being said, in prime time, in a must-win game, I'm going Bengals 27, Commanders 20. I do believe it's going to be close. And I think the Bengals, I don't think they're going to cover. So I'm going Bengals 27, Commanders 20. So I expect the Bengals to get their first win of the season. They'll move to 1-2 on the season, and the Commanders will drop to 1-2 on the season.